byiza kuri mwese mukurikiye televiziyo Rwanda tubaha tubifurize gukomeza kugira ibihe byiza mwese mukurikiye televiziyo Rwanda tubaha ikaze muri gahunda zacu zikomereje ahangaha muri Kigali Convention Center aho tugiye kubagezaho ibirori byo gutangiza ku mugaragaro inama y'abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma bigize umuryango wa Commonwealth. Ni inama izwi nka CHOGM, ni inama nyirizina yari imaze igihe itegerejwe n'abanyarwanda by'umwihariko ariko muri rusange inategerejwe muri uyu umuryango wa Commonwealth, inategerejwe n'isi yose muri rusange kuko ni inama yo ku rwego rwo hejuru, ni inama yo ku rwego mpuzamahanga ihuriza hamwe abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma muri uyu umuryango wa Commonwealth, umuryango ugizwe n'ibihugu bisaga 50, ibihugu 54. Ni abantu benshi cyane bahuriye muri ibyo bihugu, ni imiliyari 2.5 z'abatuye uyu umuryango, bagize hafi 1/3 cy'abatuye isi yose. Birumvikana rero 1/3 cy'abatuye isi barahagarariwe hano muri Kigali Convention Center, barahagarariwe hano mu Rwanda. Andi mateka yongeye kwiyandika ku Rwanda mu buzima bw'abanyarwanda, mu mibereho y'iki gihugu, kwakira abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma, kwakira abanyacyubahiro batandukanye n'abahagarariye abaturage b'ibyo bihugu mu rw'imisozi igihumbi. Ni inama yari maze igihe itegerejwe, inama muzi ko yasubitswe inshuro 2 zose kubera impamvu z'icyorezo cya COVID-19, ariko kera kabaye inama ikaba ibaye. Umunsi nyirizina rero warutegerejwe wari uyu nguyu, kwakira aba banyacyubahiro bose ahangaha mu Rwanda kuri Kigali Convention Center. Aho turi niho hagiye kubera uyu muhango wo gutangiza iyi nama ku mugaragaro. Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika Paul Kagame na Madamu bakaba bamaze kugera hano, yewe ndetse n'abandi banyacyubahiro bitabiriye iyi nama, mukaba mubibona ko bamaze kugera ahangaha aho iyi nama mu kanya gatoya iza kuba itangiye. Ni inama yitabiriwe n'abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma muri uyu muryango wa Commonwealth kuva ku gihugu cy'Ubwongereza. Byumvikana ko aricyo cyatangije uyu muryango. Minisitiri w'Intebe Boris Johnson murabizi ko amaze iminsi 2 ageze hano mu Rwanda, ndetse n'igikomangoma cya Wales Charles kigomba gusimbura umwamikazi Elizabeth wa kabiri ku ngoma y'Ubwongereza. Igikomangoma Charles nawe akaba ari hano, ndetse n'umugore we Camilla, bose bakaba bategerejwe ahangaha muri iyi nama aho igiye kubera. Nk'uko twabibararikiye rero, ni umuhango uza gukorwa mu buryo bwihariye, n'ibirori biza kuba bibereye ijisho, aho buri mukuru w'igihugu na guverinoma cyangwa se umuhagarariye baza guhamagarwa umwe ku wundi, bagenda bakirwa mu buryo butanga icyubahiro ku bihugu byose uko ari 54 bigize uyu umuryango wa Commonwealth. Iyi nama ya CHOGM rero nkuko mwabikurikiye ikaba yarabanjirijwe n'izindi ziyishamikiyeho, harimo inama ku bucuruzi cyangwa se business forum, inama y'urubyiruko youth forum, inama y'abaturage cyangwa se people's forum, muzi ko ihuriza hamwe imiryango itari ya leta, cyane cyane imiryango ya societe civile. Akaba rero ari inama zose zabaye, ndetse n'inama y'abari n'abategarugori cyangwa se women forum. Izi nama zose mukaba muzi ko zagiye ziba, ariko hakaba hari n'izindi nama zikomeye nazo zishamikiye kuri iyi ngiyi y'abakuru b'ibihugu mwakurikiye zagiye zibanziriza iyi ngiyi. Zose rero ziba zitegereje iyi ngiyi nyirizina y'abakuru b'ibihugu, kuko imyanzuro yose yavuye muri izo nama ishyikirizwa abakuru b'ibihugu, hanyuma bakayihuza n'ibiri kuri gahunda y'ibigomba kwigwa muri iyi nama. Inama y'abakuru b'ibihugu muri uyu muryango muzi ko ariyo igena politike ndetse n'icyerekezo uyu muryango uba ugomba kugenderaho. Ni ibirori rero bibereye ijisho nk'uko mubibona. Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika Paul Kagame ari kumwe n'umunyamabanga mukuru wa Commonwealth Madame Patricia Scotland, bakaba bari aho aho bagomba kwakirira abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma ndetse n'abahagarariye mbere y'uko binjira ahangaha mu cyumba nyirizina iyi nama igiye kuberamo hano muri Kigali Convention Center. Ni ibirori, ni umuhango ukomeye wo ku rwego rwo hejuru mukurikira kuri televiziyo Rwanda. Turahababereye kugira ngo ntihagire na kimwe kiza kubacika. Abandi rero banyacyubahiro batandukanye cyane cyane abafasha b'abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma bitabiriye inama, bakaba nabo bamaze kugera ahangaha mu cyumba inama iberamo. Nkuko mubizi n'abandi batumiwe muri iyi nama nabo bakaba bamaze kugera aho ibera. Hakaba hategerejwe ko abo banyacyubahiro bagera ahangaha inama igatangira. Biteganyijwe ko haza kuririmbwa indirimbo yubahiriza igihugu mbere y'uko uyu muhango utangira, ndetse itorero ry'igihugu rukerereza rikaza gususurutsa abitabiriye iyi nama. Ni mu gihe kandi birumvikana mu banyacyubahiro baza kugeza ijambo ku bitabiriye iyi nama harimo nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika Paul Kagame, umunyamabanga mukuru wa Commonwealth Madame Patricia Scotland, Minisitiri w'Intebe w'Ubwongereza Boris Johnson, ndetse n'igikomangoma cy'Ubwongereza cyangwa se igikomangoma cya Wales Prince Charles, nawe akaba aza kugeza ijambo ku bitabiriye iyi inama ya CHOGM cyangwa se inama y'abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma muri uyu muryango wa Commonwealth. Ni umuhango rero utagomba kubacika, tubagezaho ahangaha kuri televiziyo Rwanda. Nkuko mubibona hanze y'iki cyumba niho nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika Paul Kagame ari kumwe na Madame Patricia Scotland, umunyamabanga mukuru wa Commonwealth, barimo kwakirira abanyacyubahiro bategerejwe ahangaha mu cyumba cy'inama. Mbere yo kwinjiramo hakaba hari umuhango wo kubanza kubakira, hanyuma bagafata ifoto y'urwibutso, ifoto y'amateka yo muri iyi nama ibaye ku nshuro ya 26, inama isiga u Rwanda n'ubundi ari rwo ruhawe inkoni y'ubushumba, niko navuga, ruhawe inkoni y'ubuyobozi mu gihe cy'imyaka 2 iri imbere. U Rwanda akaba ari rwo rugiye kuyobora uyu muryango wa Commonwealth, kikaba ari ikindi gitego u Rwanda rutsinze. Ngira ngo nkuko mwabikurikiye abanyacyubahiro bose bageze hano, abaturage bo muri ibihugu 54 bigize uyu muryango bose bamaze iminsi ahangaha, icyo bavuga ni kimwe, nuko u Rwanda ari urumuri ku muryango wa Commonwealth, nuko u Rwanda ruhagarariye icyizere ku muryango wa Commonwealth ndetse n'isi yose muri rusange, kubera ko hari abageze hano ku nshuro ya mbere batari bakiboneye n'amaso yabo u Rwanda rushya mu myaka 28 ishize. Abanyarwanda bahisemo kuba umwe, Abanyarwanda bahisemo kureba kure, Abanyarwanda bahisemo kubazwa ibyo bakora. Amahitamo 3 akomeye mukuru w'igihugu yakunze kugarukaho. Abanyarwanda bahisemo kubakiraho kugira ngo bubake igihugu gitekanye, igihugu gifite agaciro, igihugu gihamije ibigwi n'ibirindiro mu ruhando mpuzamahanga, mu ruhando rw'ibindi bihugu. Ngira ngo abakurikiye imbuga nkoranyambaga n'ibitangazamakuru mpuzamahanga mwakurikiye ibyagiye bitangazwa na Minisitiri w'Intebe wa Canada nawe uri hano Justin Trudeau, mwakurikiye ikiganiro Minisitiri w'Intebe w'Ubwongereza ubwe Boris Johnson yahaye Channel 4 yo mu gihugu cy'Ubwongereza. Ni abanyacyubahiro batandukanye, n'abayobozi batandukanye, ni abaturage, abayobozi b'inzego zitandukanye zirimo n'imiryango itari ya leta, bose bari hano bavuga bati ntabwo twari twakamenye ko u Rwanda ari aha mugeze. Mu myaka 28 ishize Jenoside yakorewe Abatutsi baye, ntabwo twari tuzi ko igihugu gishobora gutera intambwe iri kuri uru rwego. Bikaba binatanga rero isura nshya ku Rwanda, ni inyungu zikomeye ku gihugu cyacu, ni inyungu zikomeye ku munyarwanda wese aho ari, kuba isura y'u Rwanda mu by'ukuri mu mboni za bamwe ihinduka kubera inama nk'iyi ngiyi cyangwa se kubera ibirori nk'ibi ngibi biba byahurije abanyacyubahiro batandukanye mu rw'imisozi igihumbi. Ni ibirori rero byo ku rwego rwo hejuru bitangira mu kanya gatoya. Nkuko mubibona abashyitsi bahagarariye ibihugu na za guverinoma bakaba ugeze ahangaha. Uyu akaba ari perezida wa Ghana na Akufo-Addo umaze kwakirwa na perezida wa Repubulika Paul Kagame ari kumwe na Madame Patricia Scotland, akaba ari umunyamabanga mukuru wa Commonwealth. Abanyacyubahiro batandukanye, abakuru b'ibihugu na za guverinoma ndetse n'abatabashe kuboneka bafite bahagarariye ahangaha, barimo ba vice perezida b'ibihugu, barimo ba minisitiri b'intebe, barimo na ba minisitiri cyane cyane ab'ububanyi n'amahanga. Twavuga ko nibo akenshi abakuru b'ibihugu batabashije kuza, bahagarariwe n'abandi bayobozi bo ku rwego rwo hejuru. Twabwira ko abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma bitabiriye iyi nama bararenga 30. Ni ikimenyetso rero gikomeye cy'uburyo iyi nama iba ifite agaciro muri uyu muryango, ariko n'ikimenyetso gikomeye nk'uko umukuru w'igihugu yabivuze ubwo yabakiraga ku meza mu ijoro ryakeye, cy'icyizere bafitiye u Rwanda, cy'agaciro bahaye u Rwanda, cy'icyizere babona mu Rwanda cyane cyane nk'igihugu kigiye kuyobora uyu muryango birumvikana mu myaka 2 iri imbere. Nacyo ni ikindi kintu gikomeye tutakwirengagiza, abantu bakwiye kuzirikana. U Rwanda rero rukaba rugize ishema ryo kwakira iyi nama mu gihe niwe munyamuryango twavuga ngo muto muri uyu muryango, kuko u Rwanda nirwo rwinjiye bwa nyuma muri uyu muryango. Mu bihugu byose 54 biri muri uyu muryango, nicyo gihugu cyonyine giheruka kwinjira muri uyu muryango mu mwaka wa 2009, kikaba ari cyo gihugu cya kabiri kiri muri uyu muryango kidafitanye amateka y'ubukoroni n'igihugu cy'Ubwongereza, kuko ni ibihugu bibiri byonyine biri muri uyu muryango bitakoronijwe n'Ubwongereza, ari byo u Rwanda rurimo kwakira iyi nama ndetse n'igihugu cya Mozambique. Ngira ngo nkuko mwabikurikiye, igihugu cya Mozambique muri iyi nama kikaba nacyo gihagarariwe na minisitiri w'intebe w'icyo gihugu, akaba minisitiri w'intebe wa Mozambique ahagarariye perezida wa Mozambique Felipe Nyusi muri iyi nama irimo kubera ahangaha. Nkuko mubibona rero, uyu akaba ari minisitiri w'intebe wa Canada Justin Trudeau, wakiriwe na nyakubahwa perezida wa Repubulika Paul Kagame ndetse na Madame Patricia Scotland, umunyamabanga mukuru wa Commonwealth. Ukurikiyeho uko mubibona ni perezida wa Kenya Uhuru Kenyatta, nawe urimo gufata ifoto y'urwibutso na perezida Paul Kagame ndetse na Madame Patricia Scotland, umunyamabanga mukuru w'uyu muryango wa Commonwealth. N'umuhango ukomeye, ni ibirori byo ku rwego rwo hejuru nk'uko mukomeje kubikurikira. Abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma bakaba bamaze kugera ahangaha, hakaba ikibanjirije inama nyirizina akaba ari ukubakira ku mugaragaro. Perezida wa Uganda Yoweri Kaguta Museveni nawe muramubona ko arimo gufata ifoto y'urwibutso, nawe akaba ari umwe mu bakuru b'ibihugu bitabiriye iyi nama ya CHOGM, inama yo ku rwego rw'isi, inama yo ku rwego rw'umuryango wa Commonwealth, inama mpuzamahanga irimo kubera ahangaha mu Rwanda. Mu kanya gatoya iyi nama ikaza kuba itangiye ahangaha aho turi kuri Kigali Convention Center. Inama mu by'ukuri ifite byinshi isobanuye. Inama nk'uko mwabikurikiye ku munsi w'ejo yanabanjirijwe n'iy'abaminisitiri b'ububanyi n'amahanga muri uyu muryango wa Commonwealth, bakaba aribo bategura imyanzuro ya nyuma igezwa ku bakuru b'ibihugu, bakaza kuyiganiraho mu rwego rwo guha icyerekezo uyu umuryango wa Commonwealth. Insanganyamatsiko y'iyi nama murabizi ko ni ukubaka ejo hazaza heza kandi hasangiwe ku rwego rw'uyu muryango, ku batuye uyu muryango bose, nk'uko mubizi basaga miliyari 2.5. Uyu rero akaba ari perezida wa Namibia Hage Geingob, nawe ugeze ahangaha umaze kwakirwa na perezida Paul Kagame ndetse na Madame Patricia Scotland, bakaba bamaze gufata ifoto y'urwibutso nk'uko mubikurikiye kuri televiziyo zanyu. Uyu ni minisitiri w'intebe w'Ubwongereza Boris Johnson, nawe wakiriwe na perezida Paul Kagame ndetse na Madame Patricia Scotland. Boris Johnson muzi ko amaze iminsi hafi 3 we ageze ahangaha mu Rwanda, aho iki gihugu cy'Ubwongereza muzi ko ari umufatanyabikorwa ukomeye w'u Rwanda. Byumvikana ko ari minisitiri w'intebe Boris Johnson ari ahangaha, ndetse n'igikomangoma cy'ikiragwa ngoma Prince Charles nawe uri ahangaha, akaza no kugeza ijambo ku bitabiriye iyi inama ya CHOGM cyangwa se inama y'abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma muri uyu muryango wa Commonwealth. Ni inama rero iza gutangira mu kanya gatoya katarambiranye, aho mu by'ukuri ubona abari muri iki cyumba cy'inama bose bategerezanyije amatsiko menshi ibiza kuvugirwamo ndetse n'ibizayivamo. Bigomba gutanga umurongo ukomeye, bigomba gutanga umurongo nyawo waho uyu muryango wose, waho miliyari 2.5 z'abatuye uyu muryango zigomba kwerekeza mu kanya katarambiranye. Rero abanyacyubahiro bakaba baza kwinjira ahangaha mu cyumba cy'inama mbere y'uko inama nyirizina iza gutangira.
Your Highness, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the formal opening of the Commonwealth Heads of Governments meeting. We will shortly begin our program, and during this ceremony, we will hear from the host of the summit, the President of Rwanda, and incoming Chair in Office of the Commonwealth, His Excellency Paul Kagame. We will also hear from the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, the Right Honourable Patricia Scotland, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the Right Honourable Boris Johnson, as outgoing Chair in Office of the Commonwealth. Finally, His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, will make his address, concluding the official ceremony. Thank you, and we will shortly begin.
Good morning. My name is David Tuvi, and I'm a proud Australian citizen and a citizen of Rwanda as well. It is my pleasure to welcome the leaders of the Commonwealth nations and their representatives to the stage. We begin with the Permanent Secretary of Foreign Affairs and External Trade of the Solomon Islands. The Ambassador of Vanuatu to Europe. The High Commissioner of Papua New Guinea to the United Kingdom. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Malawi. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Sri Lanka. The Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs of Trinidad and Tobago. The Minister of External Affairs of India. The Minister for Justice, Communications and Foreign Affairs of Tuvalu. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of New Zealand. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Malaysia. the High Commissioner of Fiji to the United Kingdom. The State Minister of Foreign Affairs of Pakistan. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of South Africa. The Minister for Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of Barbados. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Cyprus. The Vice President of the Gambia. The Prime Minister of Mozambique. The Prime Minister of Tonga. The Prime Minister of Samoa. The Prime Minister of Belize. The Prime Minister of the Bahamas. The Prime Minister of Cameroon. The Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania. The Deputy Prime Minister of Malta. The Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. The Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Information Technology of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bangladesh. The President of Zambia. The President of the Seychelles. The Prime Minister of Lesotho. The President of the Maldives. The President of Botswana. The President of Ghana. The Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda. The President of Nigeria. The Prime Minister of Jamaica. The Prime Minister of Mauritius. The President of Sierra Leone. The President of Guyana. The Prime Minister of St. Lucia. The Prime Minister of Canada. the President of Kenya, the Prime Minister of Dominica, the President of Uganda, the Sultan of Brunei Darussalam, the King of Eswatini, the Prime Minister of Singapore, the President of Namibia, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the President of Rwanda, and the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Could I kindly ask our distinguished heads of government from across the Commonwealth and their representatives to take their seats as we await our final guests. Thank you. Please make them feel welcome. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. The President of Rwanda. The Secretary General of the Commonwealth. I now invite you all to stand as we welcome His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. Please remain standing for the national anthem of Rwanda.
Please take your seats. Your Royal Highness, Your Majesties, Your Highness, Your Excellencies, Secretary General, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. My name is Ambassador Yamina Karitanyi, and it is an honor to be your Master of Ceremonies on this special day. In 2009, Rwanda was admitted into the Commonwealth of Nations. And in 2018, our country was selected as the next host of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. The COVID-19 pandemic had its way for the last 2 years, but we are finally able to gather here in Kigali. What an honor to host this meeting. Indeed, what a privilege to welcome leaders and delegates from all over the world in our land of 1,000 hills. And as we say in Kinyarwanda, murakaza neza. It is now my honor to invite His Excellency Paul Kagame, our host and incoming Chair in Office of the Commonwealth, to deliver his welcome remarks. Mr. President.
Your Highnesses, Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, Secretary General, special guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and honor to welcome you to the 26th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, the 6th in Africa, and the first since our world was turned upside down by a devastating pandemic. We join together to pay tribute to Her Majesty, the Queen, the head of the Commonwealth and its most devoted champion. Over her 70 years of service, the Commonwealth has grown both in number and in the scope of its ambition. The fact of holding this meeting in Rwanda, a new member with no historical connection to the British Empire, expresses our choice to continue reimagining the Commonwealth for a changing world. The Commonwealth does not replace other institutions. It adds to them. That's why we always have important special guests with us. This year, let me recognize in particular His Highness the Emir of Qatar, and I thank him for being here with us. The Commonwealth we need is on the front lines of global challenges, not on the periphery, watching events unfold. Our special strength is to bring issues into focus that might otherwise be overlooked. For instance, the way that climate change puts the very existence of small islands and developing states into jeopardy, or the possibility to transcend size and geography by leveraging new technologies to create high-quality global jobs for our youth right at home. We are united by a shared language, whether English is our first, second, third, or even fourth one. But what really defines us are the values enshrined in the Commonwealth Charter and a commitment to good governance, the rule of law, and the protection of rights. That's why we shall always remain open to new voices and new members. And wherever we might fall short, we find solutions through consensus and dialogue. We build each other up and we move forward together. In closing, I want to welcome you all to Rwanda. Ours is a country that was torn apart by genocide and division just a generation ago. Today, we are a nation transformed in heart, mind, and body. Three-quarters of our population are young people with no memory of those events. Everything we do, including joining the Commonwealth in 2009, is aimed at making sure that our people are connected, included, and forward-looking. We are delighted that through CHOGM, you have the opportunity to get to know us, and we aim to repay that trust with many years of continued friendship. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your welcome remarks. Let us now enjoy a performance by Urukerereza, the National Ballet of Rwanda. The performance illustrates our country's culture and oral traditions. I hope you have all enjoyed this performance by our national ballet, Urukerereza. It is now my pleasure to invite the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, the Right Honourable Patricia Scotland, to deliver her remarks.
Mr. President, thank you for welcoming us to your beautiful, inspiring country. It is so wonderful to be in Rwanda and in this incredible, thriving, rising continent. Your Majesties, Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, Your Excellencies, Honourable Ministers, distinguished guests, friends and colleagues, welcome to Kigali. This CHOGM has been a long time coming. The period since we last gathered together has been marked with sorrow. More than 1 million of our brothers and sisters across the Commonwealth, from all walks of life, including heads of government, have died. And as we formally open this vital meeting, I invite you all to join with me in a moment of silent reflection in memory of them all. Excellencies, in 1953, Her Majesty the Queen shared her vision for a Commonwealth which bears no resemblance to the empires of the past, to an entirely new conception built on the highest qualities of the spirit of man, friendship, loyalty, and the desire for freedom and peace, an equal partnership of nations and races to which she would give her heart and soul. She has given her heart and soul. In the year of her Platinum Jubilee, with heartfelt thanks and the greatest admiration, we pay tribute to her. And we warmly welcome her representative and the future head of the Commonwealth, His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales. Her Majesty's vision remains the standard against which we judge ourselves as a family of nations. In 1919, at the end of a war which killed millions, during a pandemic which killed millions more, leaders gathered in France, striving for an internal peace. Their quest was noble, but it failed. That failure had profound and devastating consequences. After the horrors and bloodshed of the Second World War, it fell upon a new generation to shape a just and lasting peace, and the international system, as we know it today, was born. The Commonwealth is part of that system, brought together to bring a touch of healing to kinships which were changing, but which continue to bind us. I believe profoundly that the Commonwealth today, in 2022, is a beacon within that international system, a place where people come together, where we work together, where no voice is louder or more important than any other, and where no one is left behind. Yes, we have shared interests and practical advantages, but we are the most significant grouping of countries in the history of the world, which is bound, above all, by values which we all aspire to. These values of peace and justice, of tolerance, respect, and solidarity, and our role as the foremost international champion for small and vulnerable states remain our enduring responsibility. They express a vision for the world that will outlast all of us. They make us different. They make us special. Honoring these values and that vision is our most sacred trust and our gift to the generations which will follow. Today, as we gather in the midst of new and decisive shifts in our world, it is imperative that those values shape the choices we will make in the hours and days ahead. The economic damage of COVID and mounting debt confront us all. The rapid intensification of climate change poses an existential threat. The tremors of conflict and instability in our world, the spiraling costs of food and fuel, and economic uncertainty threaten a serious and protracted crisis. This CHOGM is first and foremost an opportunity to find answers to these questions. It will not be easy. We will have to dig deep. We will have to respect each other and find what joins us. We must trust each other. We must talk and listen to each other and give all that we have to achieve progress for the 2.5 billion people we all represent. But here, in Rwanda, something else is at stake, something even more transformational. The world is changing. People are anxious. I understand the pressure on each and every head of state today. The last few years have shaken the kaleidoscope. But before the pieces settle, we have an opportunity right here, right now, to show the world what real unity, real solidarity, real cooperation, and real progress look like. To have served as your Secretary General these past 6 years is the great honor and privilege of my life. Together, we have been friends in good times and in bad, voices for the voiceless, advocates for development and progress. We have laid the foundations for transformational change, and I am determined that when the role of Secretary General rotates to Africa 2 years from now, I will hand on the baton with a stronger, more effective, more powerful Commonwealth than ever before. I have an unshakable belief that we can take our Commonwealth to new heights, to hold our values ever closer, and to set an example for the whole world. As Her Majesty the Queen has said, it has always been easy to hate and destroy. To build and to cherish is much more difficult. This week, face to face with each other and in the presence of her son and heir, we have the greatest opportunity we will ever have to live up to those words. It is a huge task, but if our history tells us anything, it is that we can seize the moment with confidence in our values and each other. And I thank you.
Thank you, Secretary General. Please join me in welcoming the Right Honourable Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and outgoing Chair in Office of the Commonwealth.
Thank you very much. Your Royal Highness, Your Majesties, President Kagame, Madam Secretary General, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honoured to perform the final duty of the United Kingdom as Chair in Office of the Commonwealth and hand over the baton to President Kagame and wish him every success as Chair of our unique association, encompassing 54 countries and a third of humanities. One of our newest members is now at the helm, and more nations are seeking to join, which tells you everything you need to know about the health and vitality of our Commonwealth, because for all the differences between us, we're united by an invisible thread of shared values, history, and friendship. The head of the Commonwealth, Her Majesty the Queen, incarnates everything that brings us together, and it's fitting that in the year of her Platinum Jubilee, the association she cherishes should be gathering in the continent where she became Queen. When the UK became your chair in office in 2018, the word COVID had not been invented. Many of us had no idea what a coronavirus was, and nobody could have known that the worst pandemic for a century would soon claim millions of lives. The British government put together the partnership between Oxford University and AstraZeneca that produced the world's most popular vaccine, and during our time as chair in office, the UK supported the delivery of more than 1.4 billion doses of COVID vaccines to Commonwealth countries. Thank you. The pandemic posed a common threat to all humanity, and the same is true of catastrophic climate change. No one understands this better than our Commonwealth friends in the Caribbean, the Pacific, and the Indian Ocean, who can see the incoming tide surging ever higher up their beaches, threatening to inundate their villages and towns, and in time, the entire landmass of some island states. For them, the baleful effects of climate change aren't vague or theoretical, but already happening before their eyes. When we hosted COP26 in Glasgow last November, it was these fellow Commonwealth leaders who spoke with the greatest urgency and authority about the perils of quilting the earth with greenhouse gases. And we in the developed world have an obligation to help our friends to cope with a danger they had no hand in causing. And during the UK's time as chair in office, the Commonwealth Finance Access Hub mobilised over $38 million for the most vulnerable members. But of course, we must press on and do more. And if I could imagine a silver bullet that would solve an array of problems and transform countless lives, it would be to give every girl in the world the chance to go to school. At the last CHOGM in London in 2018, the UK announced £212 million for the Girls' Education Challenge, and I'm delighted to say that this initiative is now at work in 11 Commonwealth countries, ensuring that girls are able to gain at least 12 years of quality education. We need to empower them to play their full part in the economy when they leave school, so the UK is funding the She Trades Commonwealth programme, which has already helped over 3,500 women-owned businesses to become more competitive and generate more than £32 million worth of sales. And if there is anyone who doubts the ability of the Commonwealth to speak with one voice, it was in June 2020 that the UK delivered the first ever joint statement by all 54 Commonwealth members before the Human Rights Council in Geneva, recalling, and I quote, "our proud history of acting to strengthen good governance and the rule of law. One of the greatest affronts to everything we stand for is Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Putin's blockade of the ports that would otherwise be shipping food to the world's poorest people. At this moment, nearly 25 million tons of corn and wheat is piled up in silos across Ukraine, held hostage by Russia. Britain supports the United Nations plan to get that food out, and we will invest over £370 million in global food security this year, including £130 million for the World Food Programme. We want to work alongside our Commonwealth friends to understand your needs, your priorities, and to deliver joint solutions to a crisis that Putin has deliberately engineered. For now, it only remains for me to thank every Commonwealth member for having given the United Kingdom the chance to serve as chair in office. And as I pass on this responsibility to President Kagame, a close friend and a partner, I know that he shares my boundless optimism about the future of the Commonwealth at the forefront of the international agenda and benefiting all our peoples. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for your remarks, Mr. Prime Minister. It is now my great privilege to welcome His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, to address us.
Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Queen in this Platinum Jubilee year, my wife and I are delighted to be with you all here in Rwanda for this 26th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. I'd particularly like to thank President Kagame and the people of Rwanda for the most impressive preparations they have made. I know how difficult the decisions were to postpone this important gathering as a result of COVID, and can only applaud Rwanda's determination and patience in ensuring our gathering is successful. Throughout her reign, the Queen has placed and continues to place the greatest importance on the common friendship, humanity, and values that all of us share in this room, not despite, but because of the diversity the Commonwealth represents. And I know how grateful she is that, in recognition of Her Majesty's unstinting service to our Commonwealth family, all Commonwealth member states have announced that they have now committed themselves to the Queen's Commonwealth canopy. I treasure the friendships we have built over these past 70 years and look forward to their deepening in the years ahead. As we build back from the pandemic that has devastated so many lives, as we respond to climate change and biodiversity loss that threatens our very existence, and as we see lives destroyed by the unattenuated aggression of violent forces, such friendships are more important than ever. I take heart from the fact that working together and with urgent intent, there is a path to build a future for humanity that is sustainable, prosperous, and just. Our Commonwealth family is, and will always remain, a free association of independent, self-governing nations. We meet and talk as equals, sharing our knowledge and experience for the betterment of all citizens of the Commonwealth, and indeed the wider world. The Commonwealth contains within it countries that have had constitutional relationships with my family, some that continue to do so, and increasingly those that have had none. I want to say clearly, as I have said before, that each member's constitutional arrangement, as republic or monarchy, is purely a matter for each member country to decide. The benefit of long life brings me the experience that arrangements such as these can change calmly and without rancor. But as I said in Barbados last November, we should never forget the things which do not change: the close and trusted partnership between Commonwealth members, our common values and shared goals, and perhaps most importantly, the strong and enduring connections between the peoples of the Commonwealth which strengthen us all. These shared values, goals, and friendships transcend the ties of shared history, as we saw in welcoming Mozambique and Rwanda to this great family of nations. And now, coming to Rwanda for the first time, visiting the Genocide Memorial and speaking to survivors, I have been overwhelmed by the resilience, grace, and determination of the Rwandan people. Today, Rwanda upholds so much that is extraordinary. As a center for innovation, a world leader in women's empowerment, a growing hub for the green economy, and a commitment to a united future. As leaders, you consider how to define and strengthen our own commitment to common purpose, and I would only offer you the view that our Commonwealth family of some of the world's most vulnerable and some of the world's wealthiest nations has the ability, indeed the obligation, to be a force for global public good. Why else, ladies and gentlemen, would an increasing number of countries want to join this association? In the diversity of the 2.6 billion people on whose behalf you speak comes great strength, which you can use, for instance, to speak up for the values which bind us, to invest in a rapid transition to a sustainable future, and to create opportunities for our young people. I believe that the Commonwealth is uniquely positioned to achieve such positive change in our world. And in speaking to you over the years, I know you agree. Indeed, I can only applaud the focus you are bringing to supporting youth, business and civil society, not least through the Commonwealth professional associations of judges, teachers and midwives, to name but three. I know the importance you attach to ensuring that support reaches the developing world, and how important is the work you are undertaking to develop new approaches which take account of climate vulnerability, to enable the better channeling of development assistance. I was also greatly heartened at yesterday's business forum to see Commonwealth leaders and global CEOs, including from my Sustainable Markets Initiative, identifying practical solutions to these vital challenges. To achieve this potential good, however, and to unlock the power of our common future, we must also acknowledge the wrongs which have shaped our past. Many of those wrongs belong to an earlier age with different and, in some ways, lesser values. By working together, we are building a new and enduring friendship. In Canada recently, my wife and I were deeply touched to meet many of those engaged in the ongoing process of reconciliation. Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples reflecting honestly and openly on one of the darkest aspects of history. As challenging as that conversation can be, people across Canada are approaching it with courage and unwavering commitment, determined to lay a foundation of respect and understanding upon which a better future can be built. It seems to me that there are lessons in this for our Commonwealth family. For while we strive together for peace, prosperity, and democracy, I want to acknowledge that the roots of our contemporary association run deep into the most painful period of our history. I cannot describe the depths of my personal sorrow at the suffering of so many, as I continue to deepen my own understanding of slavery's enduring impact. If we are to forge a common future that benefits all our citizens, we too must find ways, new ways, to acknowledge our past. Quite simply, this is a conversation whose time has come. Your Excellencies, conversations start with listening, and as the Queen said at our last meeting, the Commonwealth has always been and remains a global association which believes in the tangible benefits that flow from exchanging ideas and experiences and respecting each other's point of view. Our ingenuity, knowledge and ideas, our courage and determination are truly our common wealth. By unlocking our potential, we can build a future in which all our people have a stake, ensuring that our Commonwealth Charter represents not just words on a page, but the lived experience of all. And in so doing, we will equip our children and grandchildren to be agents of a better future. Your Excellencies, if we are to leave the world better than we found it, and that is our duty and our privilege, we must be bold with our ambition, decisive with our actions, and united in our effort. In this mission, I know Her Majesty the Queen stands with us all.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness, for those kind words. The Commonwealth represents a family of nations, and we also celebrate our rich diversity. I am delighted to introduce the students of the Rwanda School of Creative Arts and Music to perform their song entitled Destiny.
One goal, one aim, one destiny, striving for equality. One Commonwealth, big family. When nations come together, oh, to lift up one another.
Oh, I have the picture common future. Save Mother Nature from the belly of deception. Call upon the youth of every nation to roll up their sleeves and wake up from this slumber.
One goal, one aim, one destiny.
One goal, one aim, one destiny.
Striving for equality.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
One Commonwealth, big family.
One goal, one aim, one destiny.
One goal, one aim, one destiny.
Striving for equality.
Striving for equality.
Whoa.
One Commonwealth, big family.
Neighbor's home is burning, yeah. Hurry up and put out the fire.
When a hungry bill is calling, a friendly hand runs for rescue.
Knowledge-based education is a healing our nation.
Call upon the youth of every nation to roll up their sleeves and wake up from this slumber.
One goal, one aim, one destiny.
One goal, one destiny.
Striving for equality.
Whoa.
One Commonwealth, big family.
One goal, one aim, and one destiny.
One goal, one aim, one destiny.
Striving for equality.
Striving for equality.
Whoa.
One Commonwealth, big family. One goal, one aim, one destiny.
Destiny, yeah.
Striving for equality.
One of a kind, yeah, yeah, yeah.
One Commonwealth, big family.
One goal,
One goal,
one aim.
one
One
aim.
goal, one aim, one destiny. Striving for equality. One Commonwealth, big family. One goal, one aim, one destiny.
One goal, one aim, one destiny. Yeah.
Striving for equality.
Oh no, no, yeah, yeah.
One Commonwealth, big family.
One goal, one aim, one destiny.
One goal, one aim, one destiny.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Striving for equality.
Yeah, let it end.
One Commonwealth, big family.
Thank you very much. And isn't that wonderful? One goal, one aim, one destiny, one Commonwealth, big family. Your Royal Highness, Your Majesties, Your Highness, Your Excellencies, Secretary General, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our ceremony. May I now invite our official photographers to come forward to take the Commonwealth family photograph. Thank you. We kindly request everyone to remain seated as His Royal Highness and their Excellencies exit the stage, and our most distinguished guests are guided out of the auditorium. Thank you. And we also wish Their Excellencies fruitful deliberations as they commence their meetings.
ko mubikurikiye rero uyu muhango nyirizina ndetse n'ibirori byo gutangiza ku mugaragaro iyi nama y'abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma mu muryango wa Commonwealth inama izwi nka CHOGM ukaba uganye ku musozo. Ni umuhango cyangwa se ibirori byitabiriwe n'abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma batandukanye bari hano mu Rwanda. Nkuko mubikurikiye bose icyo bahurijeho nuko u Rwanda ni igihugu cyari kibereye kwakira iyi nama, ikimenyetso cy'urumuri, ikimenyetso cy'ikizere cyazaza ku batuye uyu muryango ndetse n'isi yose muri rusange. Nkuko mubizi rero bikaba iyi nama irangirana no guha inkoni y'ubushumba cyangwa se y'ubuyobozi u Rwanda. Ni ubuyobozi bw'umuryango wa Commonwealth bwari uri mu biganza by'igihugu cy'Ubwongereza cyangwa se umuryango wa Commonwealth wayobowe n'igihugu cy'Ubwongereza muri iki gihe. Ariko u Rwanda nyuma yo kwakira iyi nama mu gihe cy'imyaka ibiri imbere y'indi nama ya CHOGM izaba mu myaka ibiri iri imbere, u Rwanda rukazaba ari rwo ruyobora uyu muryango. Nkuko mwari bikurikiye rero nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika Paul Kagame akaba yahaye ikaze abitabiriye iyi nama bose, avuga ko mu myaka ishize by'umwihariko mu myaka 28 ishize u Rwanda rwahindutse, u Rwanda rwiyubatse, abanyarwanda abubatse igihugu cyabo bakaba ari abantu bahindutse yaba ku mubiri, mu mutima ndetse no mu ntekerezo. Ariyo mpamvu ibi byose bishobora kugerwaho, ari nabyo bafashe ijambo bose, yaba umunyamabanga mukuru wa Commonwealth Madame Patricia Scotland, yaba Minisitiri w'Intebe w'Ubwongereza Boris Johnson, yaba ni igikomangoma Charles nawe wafashe ijambo muri iyi nama. Bose bakaba bashimye uburyo u Rwanda rwateye intambwe ikomeye, uburyo u Rwanda rwateguye iyi nama by'umwihariko n'uburyo ikomeje kugenda neza. Ni nyuma rero y'ibirori byo kuyifungura ku mugaragaro cyangwa se byo kuyitangiza ku mugaragaro, abakuru b'ibihugu bakaba bakomeza ibiganiro, ariko bakaba hafashwe akaruhuko mu kanya gatoya. Rero ibiganiro by'abakuru b'ibihugu cyangwa se inama y'abakuru b'ibihugu bo ikaba iza gukomeza. Tubibutsa ko hari umushyitsi w'icyubahiro cyangwa se umushyitsi wihariye watumiwe muri iyi nama nk'uko bisanzwe mu muco w'iyi nama cyangwa se bisanzwe mu muco wa Commonwealth. Akaba ari Emiri wa Katari Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, nawe uri ahangaha. Katari ntabwo ari umunyamuryango wa Commonwealth, ariko umuyobozi w'ikirenga wa Katari akaba nawe ari hano nk'umushyitsi udasanzwe cyangwa se umutumirwa udasanzwe muri iyi nama. Reka tubashimire rero kuba mwakurikiranye ibirori byo gufungura iyi nama ku mugaragaro. Imirimo ijyanye nayo n'ibindi bikorwa byose bifite aho bihuriye n'iyi nama mugakomeza kubikurikira kuri televiziyo Rwanda ndetse n'ibindi bitangazamakuru byose bya RBA. Reka dusubize mu mugenzi wacu ijambo uri muri studio Isabelle Masozera akomeze ni ikiganiro.